Welcome to the Perfect Life Awakening Show, hosted by Royce Morales. Royce has been a transformational facilitator, teaching groundbreaking, spiritually based courses for more than 4 decades. She is the author of 3 books about her teachings. Join Royce as she takes you on a journey into how to live your best life and find your true purpose through discovering the origins of subconscious, disempowering notions and releasing them. She talks with experts and inspiring people just like you who learned to trust their intuitive inner wisdom, which led to life-changing shifts. Today, her guests live an empowered existence and are helping change the world to a higher consciousness place based on truth and love. You deserve to awaken to, align with, and embody your true self and live a life filled with love. Transform yourself from triggered to empowered and create your perfect life. Here is your host, Royce Morales.
Welcome to my show. Thank you so much for joining in. And gosh, where do I begin after what happened yesterday in the election? And I don't want to turn this into a whole political discourse, but I just need to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Yes, anyway, but as far as I'm concerned, looking at it spiritually, we keep repeating things until we learn what we're supposed to learn from them. And, you know, it's the pain we feel is because of the fact that we just feel so much love. So it just seems to be a balance there. So with all of that in mind, today I get to talk to someone truly amazing, and it seems appropriate, the timing, because we're going to talk about mindful masculinity with Scott Grace. And let me just give a little spiel first before we get into hearing from Scott. I have noticed in the last few years, maybe even the last few decades, that masculinity and femininity are rapidly changing. They really are. And it seems like there's a balance that's happening finally after centuries, decades. It took a while, but I think men are finally embracing their feminine side and women are accepting their masculine side. Balance is happening. And they're both realizing the power of both sides and the importance of both sides and the balance of that. And my guest today, Scott Grace, is the author of Mindful Masculinity, as you can see on his shirt. And it's the subtitle, which I just love, is a book, It's a book for men and the women who love them. And he's really helping this long road toward balance, bringing insight, humor, and wisdom to help men adapt, grow, and become fully authentic. And he really kind of strips away some of the misconceptions and embedded beliefs and behaviors. They're just no longer serving us. And a lot of the self-deprecating humor that he uses, I think, is just really, really special. And it's kind of more like a manual. And I'm going to have him explain some of the techniques that he utilizes. He's helping men transcend their ego, their beliefs, their habits, the roles that they believe they have to have. And that's no easy task. And I think one of the most important things that I've noticed about the book is that he's helping come. Are you okay, Scott? We can hear you. So
I was on settings all that time.
Oh, okay.
Wondering what happened.
Okay, well, wait, I'm still introducing you. So just give me a minute here. What I was starting to say is one of the things that I think is most important about your book is that you're helping to transform the inner critic. We all have inner critics, male or female. Having worked with people that have really strong inner critics, it's not something just reserved for men. And it's also just so important in terms of getting in touch with our authenticity, whether we're male or female. So there he is again. So Scott is a highly sought after singer, speaker, workshop leader, life coach, and also stand-up comedian. And toward the end of our show, he's going to do something which is really special. He has, shall we say, channeled Dr. Seuss and turned him into a spiritual leader. he's going to share some really wonderful Dr. Seussisms that he's come up with. So welcome, Scott. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you, Royce. I had some bumps in the road getting here, but here I am.
There you are. So tell us, first of all, how did you get started in this particular direction in your life, the masculinity healing aspect? How did that get started for you?
Well, I was always involved in men's groups my whole adult life, and I always felt like the odd duck, that there was something more feminine and less manly about me. And I always saw it as a weakness. Eventually, I started to realize that I had some particular gifts that many men haven't developed. And so I started to trust that I had a voice and say. And my boss at the time, Henry, had read one of my books and just asked me to start writing some essays on masculinity. And before too long, I realized that this was a body of work, not just a few articles. And it just kept coming. And I kept following, saying yes.
Yeah, well, that's great. Yes, and I also saw in your book that you stated that you've made every mistake when it comes to being a man, and a lot of it, I don't know if it was because Tarzan was your role model or just one of the role models, but what were the mistakes that you made because of the role model notion that you had?
Wow. I would say being something other than I'm not to try to get a result. And thinking that masculinity was in some idealized role model from movies and magazines and cultural scripting. I also have been both on the needy side in relationships, looking for mama, and protected and detached and unwilling to open my heart, to commit. I think, like that's stuck in my head. Everything. I've been out of balance in every which way a man can be out of balance.
Yeah. And how does the role model of like your father, your dad, or what society says, how did that impact you?
Well, with and without words, he said, "Here's how to be a man." And there were unspoken rules like you don't cry, your worth comes from what you do, hard work will help you have self-esteem, never be lazy, never rest, and don't be selfish, but don't kiss anyone's ass. It became like more and more of a straight and narrow path, trying to fit into my father's straitjacket so that I can get his approval.
Yeah. Yeah, the need for approval goes deep in all of us, whether it's male or female. So yeah. So how did you break through all of that? Did it just sort of happen for you?
With trepidation, therapy, with fear, doubt, courage, small trembling steps. There were some moments of peak experiences and empowerment. I remember in 1996, I did the men's initiatory weekend, the New Warrior Training Adventure. And I remember like feeling like I had fire in my belly and I could do anything. And I wasn't going to let fear stop me one more moment. That's the feeling I got from that weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
did it stick?
Not so much. It was like a peak experience, and then
Mhm.
coming down from the mountain, finding an equilibrium between, yes, I still am committed to taking risks and being courageous, but I can't do it to the level of that weekend.
Right. Yeah.
That weekend was, yeah, that was like having a fire under my butt,
Yeah.
which was great. You can't you can't live daily life like that, I don't think. I think there has to be a balance between comfort and risk taking. Too much of one or the other, not so good. So I found my balance.
Yeah, I think that's important. I kept using that word balance in the intro because I think that's what we're striving for. We're striving maybe for females to be appropriate when they're supposed to be in touch with their feminine side, and men appropriate with their masculinity based on situations or whatever. So, yeah, yeah. So, what about mindfulness? I mean, that's right there in the title of your book. What does that really mean in terms of masculinity?
Well, it means being curious and seeking to be aware of what makes you tick, what makes you do the things you do and not want to do other things. And there's a certain natural innate curiosity that women are more allowed to have in their conversations with themselves and with their therapists and with other women. And it's just beginning to dawn on the male collective consciousness that mindfulness is a good thing, that you don't have to be spinning your head in the paralysis of analysis, that
Mm.
mindfulness doesn't mean asking yourself, why am I, it's not trying to figure yourself out in a Freudian way, but it's just being mindful. Like there's what you're doing, and there's a witness observing your life, and the peace, the wisdom and the satisfaction is in how much do you identify with the witness of your life, not necessarily the player who's having ups and downs, wins and losses, victories and defeats, and could bounce around like an emotional yo-yo every day if what you think you are is simply a human being. But if you step back and identify yourself as the spacious awareness around your life, yeah, that's where you start to feel more of a consistent sense of well-being, not dependent on who wins the election or how much money you have in your bank or whether you're married or single. Then those are the circumstances of your life that you can't really control. But the mindful awareness is where your power is.
Yes. So, you mentioned the election.
Oh, I did.
You
What
did.
do
And
I?
I,
It was a
I, I,
Freudian slip. I meant to say erection.
oh, okay, there you go. That's better. But so let's talk about that for a minute, because so many people are saying that Kamala lost because she's female,
Mm.
and that there were
Mhm.
so many men of all races, creeds, and whatever voted for Trump
Mhm.
because he's a man, and they have that attitude that, oh, he's powerful, and and all of that, all of the stereotypic maleness of him. So, what is your thought about all that?
Well, I live in a country now called Mexico, where we just elected a woman president.
Yay.
And, Mexico has as much, if not more, machismo in
Mm.
the culture. I don't think it's that simple. And oh, when when we're in pain, we love to blame. We love to assign, fault. And this is a time where half the country is grieving, and they're going to be looking for fault. And is it that simple that she was a woman? I would I wouldn't rest at that. I mean, I think there needs to be a detailed inventory on what's been going on with the Democratic Party and how it's not reaching the people that it used to reach. And there's a multitude of reasons for that, and I think her sex is low on the totem pole. Yeah, just like we elected a black president.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
Okay.
simple easy answers there.
Yeah, really. Exactly. So if men suddenly poof transcend those roles and those egos and that, determination to be the fearless Tarzans in life, what is life going to look like? I mean, I'm always looking at the bigger picture of things.
Me too.
Yeah, and I always think, okay, well, we kind of need people to be some Tarzans occasionally, and maybe
Yes.
we need some
Yes.
people to be. Yeah. So what is your vision of how that will show up?
Well, Tarzan, the strength of Tarzan is that when life needed fight or flight, he was really good at it.
Hmm.
The drawback of Tarzan is that he thought black and white. So, like Jane good, celibacy bad.
Right.
Everything was in black and white. There were no colors and nuances in the way he would think. So that's part of the primitive brain, is it really gears you up for danger, helps you face danger, helps you go into burning buildings. And yet now every generation has less burning buildings, less need for constant fight or flight. And yet our nervous systems haven't made the transition.
Yes.
Our nervous systems are still gearing up as if life is, an emergency. It's like 911 is being called in our psyches more often than not. And that's what anxiety is. It's like a constant state of emergency that doesn't need to be there. So it's run wild. So what would it look like? I'll just get back to your question, Royce. Royce. I, I I don't know. I mean, it's rather exciting. What happens to all of that adrenaline when it's mellowed, when it's on call and it's ready for action, but it's not necessarily running through your nervous system 24/7. It turns into creativity.
Yes.
So, wow, like, so in other words, like, let's say we cut the military budget because the world is a less dangerous place. What happens is a lot of people who would go into the military, they learn some skill, trade, or artistic expression that really is more about creativity than protecting society.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there'll always be people called to protect and serve in ways that require biceps and that kind of courage. But wow, what a mass exodus we'll be making, and already have. I was in Greenwich Village 2 weeks ago visiting my mom, and it was a Wednesday night, and I was in Washington Square Park watching the amount of creativity and diversity and self-expression and connection and community. I have a bunch of things on my Facebook page about it. I can't even begin to tell you how much it touched my heart, because I grew up in Greenwich Village. So I spent like from 18 to 25 living there. And there was a certain I would say, darkness to the energy there, drugs and the police and it was hard. It was a hard place. And now it's a festive, delightful place. I saw people juggling and all kinds of things with glow in the dark stuff just for fun. They were all just doing their glow in the and then there were just people watching, and then there was like 100 people dancing salsa at another part of the park, doing their Cuban dancing with loud music. And another place, young people were feeding the homeless and the hungry. They had just cooked up a meal and were feeding them. Everywhere I looked, there was something new and creative and kind going on. That's a glimpse of what's coming. Greenwich Village has always been like a precursor. When I lived there, it was way ahead of its time. In fact,
go ahead.
I wrote a song when I was in my 20s about what I was seeing and learning in Greenwich Village, and I'd like to share it with you.
Oh, good.
I just happened to have my guitar here. What a coincidence.
Just happened to have it.
Yeah. I didn't even know it was here.
Huh. Amazing.
One day I took me a walk in Greenwich Village, New York, to catch up on the latest crazes. I found a brand new reference for sexual preference listed in the yellow pages. This is before the internet. I stumbled upon a crowded hair salon. The line went around the block. There was a special that day on purple body waves with a little green on the top. Yes, we're becoming a rainbow. Yes, we are seeing the light. Would you rather see through a color TV and throw away your black and white? Yes, we're becoming a rainbow. Yes, we are seeing the light. It's so hard to stay with your own kind these days when no two people look alike. Well, there's new races, new faces, new colors, new creeds. We're swimming in diversity. You can keep company with the folks you agree with or sample the variety. I got a born-again friend who dabbles in Zen. She's Christian in a mystical way. If you don't like your religion, get a second opinion. Why stick to only one faith these days? Yes, we're becoming a rainbow. Yes, we are seeing the lights. Would you rather see through a color TV? Throw away your black and white. Yes, we're becoming a rainbow. Yes, we are seeing the light. It's so hard to stay with your own kind these days when no two people look alike. When no two people think alike. When no two people are alike.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Thank you for that.
Do you think your listening audience has heard of black and white TVs?
Oh, maybe. I'm sure they can imagine what one would look like, though.
Yes.
Well, we need to take a bit of a break, and I'm talking to Scott Grace. He is the author of Mindful Masculinity, and he is going to also surprise us later on toward the end of the show with a wonderful rendition of what Dr. Seuss would sound like if he was spiritual. So we'll be right back.
Times TV. Do you crave joy but feel stuck? Do you go through life feeling constantly triggered and frustrated? Fear is likely the culprit, and subconscious fear is likely sabotaging you. Perfect Life Awakening is a time-tested, spiritually based approach to inner transformation created by Royce Morales. For over 40 years, she has helped people get to the origins of subconscious fears and ultimately help them find their true purpose and a life full of joy. Sign up for Perfect Life Awakening today at roycemorales.com. You deserve to go from triggered to empowered, shifting your life with Perfect Life Awakening. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back. Uh-oh, we lost Scott. He's back there.
No, I am never lost.
Okay.
Never.
We are talking with Scott Grace. He is the author of Mindful Masculinity, and I've got so many questions. Still, one of them is, and you might have answered this a little bit. So if everything is balanced, male and female, excuse me, what about, will there be room for kind of strong, purpose-driven, successful men, or will that kind of just go away? Will everybody sort of just be creating and playing?
Well, I think I did answer that in my last song. In other words, the more we evolve, the more diversity is welcome and celebrated. There's going to be always men who feel like it's their purpose to, bodybuild or firefight or, build roads or whatever. There's so many ways of expressing masculinity, and they're all going to be on the table, not just, what's going to be missing is there's no one right way to do being a man anymore. Yes. And that's already the case for most people. Just don't have the pressure that our last generation had, that I had.
Yeah.
My daughter's generation they're just going to need a lot less therapy.
That's right. So I think maybe the difference is that the image that I'm getting is you can still choose to be a firefighter and rescue people and do all of that manly stuff. But then when you're done, you can cry about it.
Oh, that's a beautiful image.
There you go.
Yeah. And maybe you can cry so much that your tears could put out a fire.
There you go. There you go. Yes. So what about, you mentioned in your book that you advocate, since we're talking about crying, you advocate grief work. And I know that a lot of men are not in touch with their sadness, and it's not anything that's acceptable. So what do you say about that, grief work?
It's something I feel very passionately about because it's transformed me. It's melted my armor and opened my heart and connected me with the rest of humanity. It's like I grieve for men who can't grieve, and I worry about it because it's men who don't know that they can cry and that it's okay, that it's not just safe, but that it's a strength, it's a superpower. Their unfelt tears turn into aggression,
Yes.
either towards themselves, which is depression and strong inner criticism, or more often than not, towards others. And any man who has hit his wife or started a war is a man who has lost connection with how to grieve, how to mourn,
Yes.
how to acknowledge loss.
Yes. I absolutely agree. Yeah. So I'm just thinking about my husband.
Aww.
He is a major Dodger fanatic, not a fan, a fanatic. And
Okay.
so I don't know if you heard, living in Mexico, but Dodgers won the World Series. And it was very sweet because he's a very emotional man. He had a stroke.
Oh,
Yeah, he had a stroke about 10 years ago, which really unleashed a lot of pent up emotions in him. Not that he wasn't
awesome.
emotional before, but he
Uh-huh.
was sitting there watching the game. And when the Dodgers won, I've never seen him do this. He was sobbing hysterically and laughing hysterically at the same time. And it was so cute. But it's that kind of depth of emotion that men just don't let themselves feel. And he didn't know whether to be happy or sad. He was sad because now there's no more Dodgers for 6 months. And he's walking around saying, no, there's no baseball for 6 months. He's very upset about that. But he's also just ecstatic about the fact that they won. So yes, emotions, men, yes.
Oh, let's do a little riffing off of that.
Okay.
So the LA Dodgers have won it big. And your husband is dancing quite a jig. He's ecstatic. He's so happy. He's crying tears of joy. But now he's asking, how am I to be employed? If I have to rest for 2 months before the season begins, what do I do with myself? How do I grin? Is there some kind of victory to win? Because I need something to put my energy in. So my head is spinning and I'm happy that they've won. But now I'm saying, what the hell now do I do for fun? What's going to elicit tears and laughter? This off-season season is a disaster. I don't like emptiness. I want it filled. So give me something to believe in and I'll foot the bill.
That's great. You're amazing. That's wonderful. I will definitely play that for him. Maybe it'll soothe those tears and that sadness.
Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, what else? You talked about grief work. And so tell us a little bit. You have a lot of techniques that you mention in your book. Tell us
Mm.
a few techniques to help men become authentic or mindfully masculine. What are some of those things that you recommend that they do?
Well, anything that increases self-awareness, body awareness. Men have been raised to be left brain, which means
Yes.
intellectual, logical, and the right brain has been dormant. Uh, while I was writing the book, I was sitting in a park in Mexico and somebody said, so what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a writer. He's like, what are you writing? I'm writing a book about men and masculinity, the changing roles, and how men can develop their feminine side. And he said, why would any man want to develop their feminine side? It's emasculating. It's ridiculous. And I tried to convince him. It was a losing battle. I should have recognized that was not a question that he asked. It was a statement of his position, inarguable. But it was fun to try. So I said, well, another word for the feminine side is the right brain. And wouldn't you like to have a whole brain fully functional? Or do you just want half the brain? Because that's what most men operate on, half of their brain power. I thought, this is a pretty good argument. I like this argument.
Good luck.
I'm winning. I'm winning. And of course, that's one of the things we talk about in the book is the how the desire to be right,
yes,
and how that keeps us away from our partners and ourselves. And it's just it's a detour, and it's an egoic strategy for avoiding shame. We can talk about that for 10 hours. But anyway, there is a whole side of the brain. It knows things without knowing how it knows things. That's what's intuitive. That's how geese fly from Canada to a little lake in Mexico every winter. How do they find this little lake? How do the whales in Alaska find this little lagoon in Mexico every year to mate? Well, there's something, it's like an inner GPS. And in our brains, it's the pineal gland. It's also called the intuition. And it just knows without knowing.
Yeah.
Now, if you're only intellectual, that sounds like, what? What are you talking about? How can I know something without studying it? It's called innate intelligence, not intelligence that you can learn in school. And most people have to unlearn logical thinking in order to make room to let innate intelligence, the inner GPS, speak to you, and to learn to trust it. And unfortunately, men more than women have more work to do there, because women have more permission in this culture to have women's intuition, whatever the hell that means, and also to trust their feelings. And feelings lead you to your intuition. In fact, your intuition speaks to you through your feelings. So the biggest thing I would change, if I could change one of the messages that men get, the message, don't trust your feelings. That's the most damaging message, because if you don't trust your feelings, you can't hear your heart, your common sense. Everything is about rules and what's right and what's wrong. And those rules are taught to you by outside forces. That's where you become a good puppet, a good cult member, a good nationalist, where you believe your country right or wrong. You can't accept those kinds of ideas unless you're divorced, disconnected from the right side of your brain.
Yep. It's interesting that you just said your definition of intuition is word for word my definition that I teach in my courses.
Oh,
I say intuition is knowing that you know and not knowing how or why. There you
go. Love it.
Yes. Yeah, it's so
I didn't
true.
know I was stealing from you.
You stole it right out of my book. My goodness. But yeah.
You didn't trademark it, did ya?
I didn't, darn it.
Good, because it's universal truth.
That is true. Yeah. So, okay. So tactics, getting in touch with your intuition. What other tactic would you recommend?
All right. Oh, this is exciting. I mean, there's definitely a lot of practical things in the book, but I'm drawing a blank. This is not a technique, but it is a direction that when how are you feeling? When a woman asks you that, I would say to men, start looking into your body and reporting about body sensations, because there's got to be a break from the trance of fine, I'm great, how are you? There's got to be a break so that there can be the beginning and dawning of intimacy, which is into me see. One of the simplest things for a man to practice is, yeah, I'm noticing some tension in my lower back. I'm wanting to yawn. I was bored out of my skull all day, and I'm grateful to be home. But to start with physical reporting, because that's what's in the present moment, and it's unarguable. This is what both men and women, in my judgment, need the most in communication, to learn to speak inarguable truths.
Yes. Honesty and truth. Yes, absolutely. In fact, there was something that you mentioned in your book. There's a different approach to honesty in men and women. How would you explain those two things?
I did say that, hoping no one would read that and ask me that on an interview.
Sorry.
So you're so intuitive. You know exactly what I was hoping you wouldn't ask.
Oh,
So
we'll cut that out of the interview. No worries.
absolutely, but for those of us who want to hear what's coming out of my mouth, including myself, men would rather go directly to the point. In other words, in this moment, I feel angry, rather than, you wouldn't believe what happened to me today. Let me start at the beginning. So for women, expressing feelings is a richer experience, where you get to the heart, to the center of the chocolate gooey middle by exploring. It's almost like foreplay. I don't want to just tell the direct truth about what I'm experiencing right now. I want to bring people and myself there gradually by telling a story. Men feel most empowered in terms of honesty the closer they get to this moment.
Interesting.
Yeah, like right now, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't even have the words to talk about what happened to me today. That's a powerful statement that could be the beginning of a conversation, or it could be the awareness that a man needs some space to sort through his feelings before talking about it. But whatever it is, men feel the most masculine in terms of communication by reporting exactly what a video camera would pick up, rather than interpretations and stories about what you think about what happened to you.
Yeah. And the way you're describing it, it sounds like the way a man would do that would make him feel more powerful versus vulnerable.
Yeah. It is I would say, if done the way that I'm practicing it, it's both. It's both.
Hmm.
Yeah.
In my teachings, I like to define words. It's one of my passions. And what I tell people is that there's a big difference between truth and honesty. Okay. Honesty is, oh, I just hate that person. Truth would be, oh, that person is showing me a mirror of myself that I really don't like, and I need to see what that's about for me. So does that make sense in terms of how a man versus a woman would see something? Or
I try to inspire and enroll both men and women to do the latter, because what you just described is the difference between um, vomiting unexamined truth and taking responsibility
right.
and looking at what's going on inside me.
Yes.
That's mindfulness as well. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So one more question before we get to your Dr. Seuss
look at
presentation.
you. I can tell what's dessert for you already.
Yeah, I know. I saw on something that you sent me that apparently more women are buying this book than men.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
pretty interesting. Why do you think that is?
I do think that women are more likely to read a book uh, about something that's going to expand their understanding of men, because women are more taught the value of relationships. They're fascinated by relationships. Men are taught more about accomplishments, and also they men, there's a chapter in the book, Too Cool for School, about that, just about how men think that if they acknowledge that they're a beginner, or they're a student of relationship, or even a student of what it means to be a man, that in and of itself may bring up shame and embarrassment. And that's, oh my God, I just remembered when I was like 18 years old, and I was in Washington Square Park, and I had just bought like 5 different self-help spirituality books. And this performer, who had like the attention of hundreds of people, asked for a volunteer. So I raised my hand. He said, come on up. And while I was coming up, all of the books dropped out of the bag. And he goes over and he picks them up. He starts holding them up and making jokes about them. I had never been more embarrassed. I wish I could have disappeared. There was such a stigma around, for me, being a young man and admitting that I don't have it all together, that I'm actually reading these kinds of books.
Yeah.
So that's what it takes for a man. He has to admit that he doesn't have it all together.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Well, that makes perfect sense. So, anything that you would like to add to everything that you've said? We only have a few more minutes to get our Dr. Seuss fix here.
Well, no, just if people want to find the book,
Yes.
and if they want to find me and connect with me, is that going to be available, or should I mention it now?
Oh, yeah, mention it. Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So the book is called Mindful Masculinity, a book for men and the women who love them. Although maybe I should have called it a book for women and the men who want to keep them. There it is.
There.
And it's a synthesis of comedy, memoir, my stories, and some teaching. So you can find that on Amazon. And then on my website, you can sign up and stay connected to my musings. You can actually watch the Dr. Seuss material and lots of some of my stand-up comedy. And it's a good place to just hang out for a while. And that's scottsongs.com, www.scott, SCOTTSONGS.com.
Great. And you're on Facebook?
You might find me on Facebook and YouTube. Oh my God. I haven't done the usual other things people do, Instagram and TikTok and all of that.
Yeah.
I haven't.
That's
Sue
okay.
me.
You're forgiven. You're absolutely forgiven.
I needed to hear that. Thank you so much.
Yes. All right, Scott, we've all been waiting for your Dr. Seuss. Give us a little background about how that got started, and then just go right into it.
Well, once upon a time, I was reading Dr. Seuss to my daughter. She was 2 years old. I closed the book, tucked her in, and I couldn't get the rhyming out of my head. And everywhere I was going, it just kept going. Like my whole day was being narrated by an inner voice that had this playful Seussian style. So, and then I just noticed that it was kind of profound. It was like, yeah, hey, there's some valuable stuff here. So I went to my computer and stayed there for about 2 months. I took frequent bathroom breaks, and out came my first poem, and it went viral on the internet. And I never planned it, but then the next one came, and within the course of 6 years, 6 poems came out of me. Most of the material is in the book, Mindful Masculinity, and it's on my YouTube channel. It's a lot of fun to see the audience interact with me, so I do recommend you check it out live. And the first one that came through me, I believe that this is a good one for men. It talks about the ego, not the ego that Freud would use the word, which he just said, this is your sense of self. I would say this is your neurotic sense of self, your fictional sense of identity, your mask, M-A-S-K, your masculinity, the face that you learn to wear to survive and to get along, but that's not really who you are. So it starts out, the ego will travel with you on this earth and be your companion for worser or worse. It pretends it's your friend, your bestest amigo, and it pours on the guilt. That's the beverage of ego. It's there to protect you, to help you be strong. So it has to remind you you're doing it wrong. You're weak and you're lazy and you don't have a clue. That's your drill sergeant ego trying to motivate you. Your ego wants you to be all you can be, so it gives you these pep talks all day and for free. Oh, the places you'll go and the guilt trips you'll travel as the ego plays judge and bangs down on its gavel. But you always can get some relief from your pain by projecting it onto the others you'll blame. For that is the ego at its beastiest best. It nurses its grievances close to its chest. Republicans, liberals, your parents, your ex. The world is just teeming with folks to correct. If only these fools could conform to your ways, you could get on with life without further delays. The ego loves finding new gripes to complain about, turns molehills to mountains of yikes to feel pain about. Sometimes the ego stuff gets you so stuffy, you come down with a cold or an ouchie more roughy. But there's no time for rest, so get up out of bed. If you're just here and now, you won't get ahead. Your to-do list must buzz like the bees when they're busying. Keep filling your days till they're endlessly dizzying. Oh, the places you'll go and the people you'll see, all through the lens of what's in it for me. As the ego believes there is something it lacks, and until it is found, it won't let you relax. Perhaps you will find it in the next one you date. True love at first sight with a soul kind of mate. The romance is hot till the climate turns cold. 'Cause when egos collide, they do not make a whole. It's great till the love gets obscured by control, because when egos combine, they do not make a whole. Now, it goes on for about 5 more minutes, and because of our time, what I'd like to do is just jump to the end.
Okay.
So you can get, because there's a happy ending here.
Oh, good.
So one day when you failed and succeeded enough, you witness your ego exposed in the buff. And you realize behind all its protective clothing, the ego's been hiding a state of self-loathing. And beyond that, you realize the biggest of deals. You've dreamt up the ego. It's not even real. So for richer, for poorer, in all kinds of health, you make a commitment to loving yourself. You release the projections you placed upon others and find through forgiveness that peace is discovered. You realize the love that you search for outside you is what you are made of and can't be denied you. So you let go your plans and your potions and pills, put some logs on the fire and learn how to chill. Your old superstitions have gone up in smoke, like you can't rest in peace until after you croak. You no longer fear death, or for that matter, life, because you know that all matters are safe and all right. While resting in peace, you will be inspired to go out in the world with some newfound desires, desires that spring from your heart and your soul, and wherever they take you, you're going there whole. Because the ego is now in the passenger seat. It lets down the window and takes in the treats. You're not in a hurry. You're going there slow. Because the journey's as rich as the places you'll go. Where you are going, you don't need to know. Because the journey's as rich as the places you'll go.
Wow. That was phenomenal. Thank you so much, Scott. We're out of time, but reach out to Scott, buy his book, watch his Dr. Seuss performances. They're wonderful. And thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you and all that you're doing.
Thank you, Royce.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.